Today I visited Elder SITTDGE019, who is an Undumbi family elder and a tour owner and operator of burial tours on the Sunshine Coast. He offers experiences to educate people on the spiritual side and the connections within the Gubbi Gubbi culture. I'd like to share some of my learnings with you. The Gubbi Gubbi Nation now extends from Gympie in the north to Bribie Island in the south and west to the Glasshouse Mountains. It consists of a number of different language groups. Uncle Aji said about 23. His tribe or people are the Undumbi people and are one of those language groups. Undumbi means coming together of salt and freshwater people. The Gubbi Gubbi Nation used to include other nations such as the Jinnabara people, but with land rights claims, people in the Jinnabara area formed their own nation in order to make a land right claim. Prior to British settlement, the First Nations people lived in their tribes. They hunted for food, guided by their totem. The Undumbi people, their totem is the wedge-tailed eagle, and the wedge-tailed eagle would guide these First Nations people in their hunting. They would tell the hunters which fish to catch, often letting the first school through and catching fish from the second school, which were more mature and less likely to be breeding. This way they were able to be more sustainable. They also had stories about which particular turtles and dugong to catch, thus allowing that reproduction and that system to be more sustainable. When the British first arrived, they set up a settlement in Yandina, which was a really good stopping point on the way to the gold mining in Gympie. Due to the forests in the area, the resources there were used and a logging settlement was set up. The First Nations people suffered massacres and other forms of removal so that the British people could get access to the land. Some people, according to the Sunshine Coast Heritage Government website and the Gubbi Gubbi People's Aboriginal Corporation website, stayed on the land and kept their connection to land through marriage to British settlers. However, if the British person died at all, then the Aboriginal person was removed from the land. First Nations people worked in building rafts from the logging and taking them down the river to Maroochydore. They were loaded onto carts and taken to Mooloolaba to load onto the ships. In their connection to country, spirit and people, it's critical to the connection to country, spirit and people is critical to the Undumbi people. And during Australia's history, when this was not allowed to be shared through formal teachings or passed on through the tribe, First Nation people lost a lot of this connection. Uncle Aji works both with community to try and keep growing this culture again. He runs tours to share knowledge and understanding of which could be shared publicly with visitors, and he runs camps for First Nations people such as the Boys to Men camp and the Women's camp, which gives them specific knowledge and cultural understanding. He also does dance and water ceremonies. When I asked about what these were, I couldn't get all the information on the dance ceremonies and on what was in those camps because that was cultural business. As we walked through the land following our conversation, he shared some of his spiritual knowledge with me. Looking at the trees, he showed me a variety of trees with people and faces in them. When I asked to take photos, I was allowed, but in the photos they were very difficult to see. One of the trees had what looked like a person sitting and had a hat on and was turning around and looking at you. Another tree you could see a face. And there was one tree, which is this one here, where you can very specifically see the face of the person. The stories associated with those trees is following those massacres. The blood from the First Nations people went into the ground, and from there it was released into the trees, and that's why we see the people who are watching the First Nations people on the land now. This tree here is a scar tree, and we saw many scar trees today. This particular one was used to make kulamon, which are a special carrier, wooden carrier to carry a baby. On other scar trees, it was explained to me how when the First Nations people used their stones to get the wood off the scar tree, they only bruised the tree, and that way the tree was able to heal. And you can see from the rounded edges into the scar where it's healed, and this protected it. So when the fires came through, or they did controlled burnings, the tree was able to protect itself and continue to grow. In a further tree, which is this one here, where a metal was used to take the wood off the tree, there was more damage done to it, and as the fires have come through, it's damaged the inside and hollowed out the tree. This tree looks as though at the bottom of it like it's dead, but when you look up you see a whole lot of new shoots, and this is showing that even though it might appear dead, it can continue to grow, and this is what is driving Uncle Aji to continue to do his work and keep developing and sharing the culture. Other trees in the forest were given meaning as well. There was a father tree shown and a mother tree. These two trees had lots of smaller trees in between them, and that was the community, and the father and mother tree look after the community and are all connected by their roots, just as the First Nations people are. Along our walk, I was also shown a bunya tree. This was a source of, where the nuts were a source of food and nutrients for the First Nations people and the Ndambi people. Native ginger was also an important food and medicinal source. And what was really interesting was a sandpaper fig plant. When you felt the leaves of this plant, these big leaves that you can see here were really rough and felt like sandpaper. And that is what is used to smooth out the wood in implements that were made. In his last camp that he had recently of Boys to Men, those that sandpaper tree leaves were used to smooth out the stick that Uncle carried, and it was beautifully smooth. And then other traditional methods were used to harden the wood, burn it, and put in the decorations. Throughout my interview, talk and tour, I was trying to be respectful. If I wanted further information, I would ask and acknowledge that I understood he might not be able to tell me. Before taking photos, I asked for permission. I was allowed to take photos of the scar trees, but I could not find out some of the information about the ceremonies, and that was okay. We spoke about the fact that Uncle Aji's ties can do welcome to country, for Kabi country, and a lot of what he shared was passed down from stories from his family and showing the perspective of the Ndambi people. The smoking ceremony is something he does with a purpose to welcome people and cleanse a site or location. One of the pieces of information I got from him in our interaction is, although I'm learning and getting a deeper understanding and knowledge of First Nations people and their culture, my role is not to be the teacher of this, but to facilitate the teaching so that students and other visitors can actually experience it and gain their knowledge from First Nations people. And that's how we should be working together to develop our understanding. I really enjoyed the tour. I got lots of information, and I hope you have enjoyed this too. Thank you.